Nancy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good.
So I'm so curious because I had fun watching the movie.
Mhm.
So for you, did it really feel like directing? Because I have a feeling you were having fun too.
Yeah, it was a little too much fun for me. I definitely there were moments where the script supervisor, my friend Annie, would punch me in the arm because I would be laughing during a take, and she's like, "You're gonna ruin your movie if you keep laughing during the takes." And so, yeah. I mean, we just had such a cool cast and such a good crew. So yeah, it was pretty darn fun to make. It was a blur of 20 days, and I don't know. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
It took 20 days to film the whole film,
It did. Yep.
and you had some fun for some bloopers. I
Oh
love
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. We still had room for bloopers, and that was like I really wanted to like I knew in a comedy it's like you need repetition. You need to be able to try things and throw lines and give the actors room to like throw things out and stuff like that. So a lot of what what we were filming, I was like, all right, we're gonna minimize sort of like our camera setups so that we can maximize the repetition and stuff like that. So it was really about shooting things in an interesting way, but also not like overshooting it so that the actors could just have take after take to try stuff. And yeah, the blooper reel, we could have done a whole other sound round of credits on just the blooper reel alone.
Let's talk about the storyline, which I really liked. It's one of those things where I always wonder, if we were to go back, how we
Yeah,
would do things differently.
yeah,
But I like the acceptance that it's just we just life can be better,
yeah.
and we just kind of as we get older, we don't need to reminisce on what could have been, what it was, what we could have done.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of moral of the story or the theme of the story is that it's really just finding out what your joy is. And for Molly, she's thinking that like, oh, I was so happy at this point in my life, it must be going back to that point in my life and then I'll be happy. But she doesn't quite find happiness there. And I think Molly's sort of like trajectory is that Molly brings out the best in people. She brings out the best in Polly. She brings out the best in Elliot. But she's in a job where she's only dealing with people at their worst. Like in the middle of a divorce, everybody's just at their worst. They're just being their worst self. And so it really wasn't going back and partying in college. It was going back and and helping people become their best. And that was really that became her journey. And then and Polly, it was about breaking away from rebelling. His parents put so much pressure on him, so he rebels so hard in the other way. But really, that didn't make him happy either. It really is just about finding yourself, like doing things on your own terms and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then how was it to find the perfect Molly? What is it that you found in Brit?
I was just a fan of Brit's. I remember seeing her in Tomorrowland and being like, "Who is this person?" Like going toe to toe with George Clooney in a really cool adventure movie and just being so funny. Her comic timing, her wit was amazing. And then she had done a show called We the People. I think it was a Shonda Rhimes show. And I was like, God, this girl is just a star. So she was probably one of the second people we sent the script to. And Girl Boss too. Like I was just, she's just amazing. And yeah, so she's probably the second person we sent the script to. And then 2 weeks later, I was on a Zoom call with her, and she just totally got it. Like she got Molly, and I think she enjoyed the idea of doing something a little bit lighter and more fun and stuff like that. And so it was that, and it was a great collaboration. We were fast friends, that's for sure.
I felt her very organic, and how she just kind of pulls off any poor situation, just makes it look lighter.
Yeah, just sort of like it's amazing the amount of work that she puts in to make something feel truly effortless, right? And so it's like you think that it's just, I mean, she's very naturally gifted, but like when you see her prepare for a scene, like she had a binder that was this thick that had the script in it, but in addition to that, all of her notes and everything like that. And the thing I love about Britt is there was a lot of scenes that I had written, kind of like we had revamped the script, made it more modern. It was actually a male driven comedy originally and stuff like that. So we flipped it to a female comedy and stuff like that. And so there are like a lot of scenes that I wrote, and I'm very wordy and sing-songy. And so a lot of actors would be like, I don't think this is going to make sense. Like, this isn't going to, I'm like, if you say it in the right sort of rhythm, it's going to be really fun. And the thing about Britt that I loved is that she would look at that and she could see it, and she would just take that time to like break down those scenes. Like, one of my favorite things is when she's telling Brenda, she's like, give me one more chance. And she's like, I took your kid from, wanting to run home with his tail tucked between his chinos to wanting to get the Badger Fight song, tattooed on his forehead, Post Malone style. Like, a lot of people would look at that and be like, that's just too many words to get out what you want to say. And she really like embraced that word salad. And I love her for that.
Who you picked as a mom?
Yeah. Jaime Pressly.
Yeah, she's hot.
She's amazing, right? She's amazing. Jaime is so cool, and I just remember talking to her for the first time, and she's a mom now, and she's a mom to boys, so she understood that. And it was funny when we were working on the script, I thought that the strip club scene was going to be like a tripping point for a lot of actresses. Like, maybe they're like, this is weird and stupid and stuff like that. I don't think I want to do this. Jamie's like, that's my favorite scene in the movie. When do we shoot that scene? And I was like, it's your last day on set. And she's like, all right, I'll get, it was like, she just saw that the humor in dragging her son to a strip club to teach him a lesson in consent, like and it's like, when people kind of get that, you're like, oh yeah, you're my people.
I love that scene. I love how that was at the beginning, because you're just kind of thrown off. Like, what direction is this going in?
Totally. Yes. It was so much fun, and she had so much fun. She also mentioned, she's like, I'm a big set eater. I love eating in scenes and stuff like that. So we had lots of like really fresh, delicious pasta. I think that was her most fun day on set, was hanging out with the dancers and eating the shrimp scampi.
That is so funny. So what's one of the scenes that you enjoyed the most? Well, obviously all of them were hilarious, but yeah, the funnest one that was like the set couldn't even stop laughing.
Oh yeah. So ironically, one of the most fun days was that when they show up at the housing office, and Amy is like, Amy is telling him that there's no housing available and stuff like that, because Britt and Nico were just so on in that day. There's so many outtakes of like Britt doing the speech about, we left college so that we can help the kids in Darfur, and they're like, Nico would like jump back into scene and be like, Darfur, and like, I mean, everybody was just like on it. Like, we could have done that scene 1,000 different ways, and it was just such a fun, simple scene. But then you also had the makeout scene with Nico and Emma Holzer, who played Amy and stuff like that. And so even like talking with that down with them was so funny, because Nico's like, I've never done a makeout scene before. I don't even know like what. I was like, well, we're gonna talk about it kind of beat by beat, and it was just, I don't know. It was just one of those days where you had a lot of hijinks, but it was like the behind the scenes was a lot of fun.
Nico was hilarious. He was an awesome sidekick.
Yes. I think the thing about Nico is that like everybody wants a friend like Polly. Like, I want a friend like Polly, that ride or die, gets you in a little bit of trouble, but also gets you out of a little bit of trouble, that sort of Jiminy Cricket, on your shoulder, but isn't afraid to mix it up,
What told you that he was the perfect one to play Polly?
I love Nico Santos. I loved him in Superstore. And when we were reworking the script, I was like, yeah, he needs to be like because his character in the original script was so much more of like kind of like a Steve Stifler, like sort of like the dude bro. And I was like, I don't think best friend would be the dude bro. I was like, we need somebody that's like a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit, a little drier humor and stuff like that. I was like a Nico Santos type. And then his agent submitted him when we started casting, and I was like, it's no longer a Nico Santos type. It's Nico. Like, he's the guy. So I was like, we got to go after him.
So you made changes when it came to the protagonist. It was supposed to be male.
Yeah, it was called The Re-Education of David Singer originally. Yeah.
So what made you guys do the change?
Well, when Todd and Kevin had written that script years ago, and so when Todd gave it to me and was like, yeah, I have this comedy script, what do you think? I loved the concept. It was still hysterically funny, but the comedy felt like a little like 90s, like more 90s humor. It was more American Pie, it was more Road Trip. And I think that comedy has evolved a little bit since then. I think that that comedy back then would, you know, could it would sort of like, you know, it could sort of like isolate people, and you're kind of poking fun. And I think that comedy now needs to be like more inclusive, where everybody needs to be on the joke. Everybody's fair game. You know, anybody can get teased. You know, Molly can get teased. You know, and you're not like singling out any sort of group or person. And so we just sort of needed to modernize that. And I told him, I was like, we've never seen like a female like Van Wilder, or, you know, like somebody that's like that just great female comedian, you know, leading the charge in a college comedy. So I was like, let's flip it. Let's just make this a little different. And then that translated to everything else, because all of a sudden, like, costumes became more poppy and fun, and it was just like, it changed the whole dynamic of the movie, you know.
I personally enjoy the 90s comedy. I mean, I'm 81, so that was,
yeah, me too. And if you look at it, it's like, it's based on all the tropes are there, but we just kind of like, we just sort of twist it, you know, because the original script, it was like, the kid goes to the strip club, and it's just the awkwardness of the strip club. And I'm like, but what if it's a lesson in consent? Like, that's the takeaway from this. And that is like, that's sort of like modernizing it, like talking about things that we're talking about now, you know?
To wrap up, is there anything else you can talk about that you're working on or going to start?
I'm currently editing a show for CW called F-Boy Island. It's like season 3, and it's super fun. If you're a Bachelor fan, this is like the comedic version of The Bachelor. It was on HBO for a few seasons, and now it's on CW. This season's gonna be hilarious, so I'm enjoying editing that. And then I have a movie that I wrote with my buddy Ben Bagley, who did the Funhouse Massacre with me. And it's a comedy that my dad told me to write years ago, and I procrastinated. And it's a comedy about it's a family comedy set in the world of professional bass fishing, because I feel like it's such a popular sport. Why wouldn't we make a movie about it? You know.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're wearing a lot of those hats.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Newsy Cap fan. Much to Annie's chagrin, that I like to wear a hat because my hair is just a mess. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you can't tell my hair's a mess without
Your hair looks amazing. What are you talking about?
Just between you and I didn't do my hair since Monday.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna take this hat off because I'd be embarrassed. I pull it off, and it's just like going like this. Yours is like, it's just like flows naturally.
It took training, lots of years of training. That's all.
It looks amazing. You're like one of those. You're like an actress in a romantic comedy that like wakes up and everything just looks perfect. You know.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yeah, me too.